Welcome to the Life Success and Legacy Podcast. We're super excited. We are taking on a worthwhile endeavor at Life Success and Legacy. Our intention is to honor Nelson Nash, the man, as well as the infinite banking concept. We're going to create a series of resources, including podcast and text, as a resource for others who want to truly understand with depth and clarity what Nelson shared in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, as well as the many seminars and think tanks that we were fortunate to have attended during his life. So who is this intended audience? Well, we will use Nelson Nash's own words. It is written for the layman, not for financial advisors, but all life agents should be thoroughly knowledgeable of its content and practice. So whether you are an individual, part of a family, a business owner, or a life insurance agent, this is for you. So sit back, relax, and we will walk you through becoming your own banker step by step so you can reference the parts you want to revisit at your own pace. And we might have a little fun along the way.
I want to welcome you back to another edition of our Life Success and Legacy podcast. My name is Chris Bay, and I'm joined by Mike Everett. Mike Everett, how are the plans for the 4th of July celebration going around the Everett household?
Oh, Chris Bay, it is in full swing. Burgers, brats, tons of sides, Cokes, but more importantly, fireworks.
You gonna blow any eyebrows off this year?
Well, this could be the year that something serious happens. I've gone all in on fireworks this year.
Now, who all are you gonna have showing up at your place?
Well, we've got Heather and her crew, of course, Kurt and his family, Kara and her family, Leanna, and my niece is coming from Western Kansas. And then Kurt's father-in-law and his girlfriend. And then I've made a few invites for people who want to just watch fireworks at 9:30. You and Crawford, I don't know if you've got plans, but if you drive out to the cul-de-sac at 9:30, I'm telling you, it is game time.
For our listeners, we're recording this on July 2nd, so we're getting close to that game time that Mike's talking about. So if any of the listeners, if we happen to release this before the 4th of July, which won't happen, but if we were, you guys are all invited. Just show up at Mike's place.
Drive out, park on the road, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to get a show. I promise you, it is a show this year.
So Mike, today we're going to dig into we're in the 5th edition of Becoming Your Own Banker, and we're on page 14, and it's a one-page section, and it's called Imagination. And I know you and I have joked about this one, that like there are some nuggets in here, but you have probably pulled out more nuggets in some of the other sections of the book. But to me, the biggest nugget is that quote that he has at the top of the page. Albert Einstein says, imagination is more important than knowledge. And I think that is so true with the infinite banking system. There are cases, situations where you, I, our team, clients, other IBC practitioners have come up with really creative ways to utilize infinite banking in their lives, right? And there's a reason that Nelson calls it the infinite banking concept. That infinite and that imagination 100%. Go together. Very first sentence there says the infinite banking concept is an exercise in imagination, reason, logic, and prophecy. And you've heard Nelson speak before many times.
30 at least.
Can you dig into just a little bit of what strikes you when he says it's about imagination, reason, logic, and prophecy?
Well, so much of infinite banking is just common sense. It's just basic common sense. And I think that's where the reason and the logic come into play. Imagination is when we're digging in, and you and I've talked about this a number of times, where our clients will actually come to us and they will come up with some kind of crazy idea about how infinite banking might work, or will this work, or what do you think about this? And the imagination is really 90% of the fun of what we get to do. So we don't just work with families, we don't work with just individuals, we work with business owners, we work with all kinds of people who have different scenarios, and they have different ideas about how this would help their families achieve the kind of freedom and the kind of financial success that they want. So really, the reason and the logic and the imagination are super great. As far as the prophecy, basically, the whole idea of infinite banking was really, it was in place hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So really all we're doing is taking what Nelson has done and making it come true using the infinite banking concept.
Yeah.
For people.
Right. And Nelson goes into an example when he starts talking about some of that imagination part. He gives an example, and obviously I can relate to it because it's about a school teacher, and I spent over 20 years in education. But he's talking about a German schoolmaster in the late 1700s, and I don't think we have to go through the details of that particularly. People can read through that. But it's an example of one of the students who, and I think this is poignant, all the other kids, when the teacher gives the problem, all the other kids start, digging in, and they're scratching out numbers and things like that. But one of them just kind of stops and starts looking out the window. And he starts conceptualizing it. And to me, we have a lot of people who will read Becoming Your Own Banker and they get lost. They don't get it. There's too many analogies. There's too many examples that don't use numbers. And I think that example of the boy looking out the window and really taking the whole thing in, he sees it, right? I'm reminded of the phrase, don't lose the forest for the trees. And how many times are we working with somebody and they are getting stuck on they're trying to create spreadsheets, and they're trying to figure out the rate of return and all these things. And it's like they're losing the forest for the trees.
Well, a great example is so many people are trying to figure it out. And it's the imagination part of this whole thing, and the reason and the logic really bring this thing home. And so because of all the noise that we have had prior to learning about the infinite banking concept with rates of return, interest rates, fill in the blank, so many people get lost. And really, it is an exercise in simplicity, which really is just, it's why it works so well for me.
And we get, yeah, I hear you saying that. It's why it works for you because it's simple. That would be both of us. I always tell people, look, if Chris Bay can figure this out, it is not hard and it works. Okay. You do not have to be a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon to figure this out.
No.
But sometimes we get stuck and we're blinded. And I'm reminded of there's a parable about an elephant. It's a story about 4 blind men and an elephant. Okay, and this is from India, long time ago. And there's these 4 blind men, and they're all touching an elephant, but they're touching a different part of the elephant. So one might be touching the leg, one might be touching the stomach, one might be touching the trunk, another might be touching the tail, right? And they start describing what they think they're touching. And they're 4 entirely different animals.
Oh, man.
But they're blind. They're only seeing it from their perspective of what they have, they're able to see. I mean, you can throw anything in politics, right? Why do we have intelligent, moral people who see politics from 2 entirely different perspectives? Example, right? It's because we're blind. We're only seeing it from one angle. And I see IBC like this also, is we all come to it with a certain vision, a certain history, a certain teaching about money. but we may not be able to see the whole elephant at first. That's where the coaches come in my opinion.
There you go. That's exactly where I was going. That's why the Nelson Nash Institute was put into place. This is why they strongly suggest that people get with coaches or practitioners that have done a giant amount of study and can help people understand the simplicity of infinite banking.
Yeah. I think we're touching on imagination a lot, but one of the core pieces that Nelson brings out in this is at the bottom of the first column. He says that this student who became one of the great mathematicians of all time, his name was Carl Gauss, but Nelson says, young Gauss did not invent this fact, this mathematical fact. He discovered what God had done already. He discovered a relationship between numbers that is fixed and nothing can be done to change it. That is true with infinite banking. It's like
it really is.
You can change where the MEC line is, you can change designs of policies, you can do all kinds of things, but you're not going to change the fact that when you control the banking function, it puts you so far ahead. And we're going to get into that here in the next couple of sections for sure.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I think keeps people stuck, and we can wrap up with this on this section, it's a short one, is that we are influenced by what we have been taught about money. Yep. And I think back, and your kids are probably too old for this, but in education, we started teaching what people called new math. It was a new way to teach kids about how to multiply or divide or do different things. And it really made sense to kids. The rub was parents didn't understand it because it was different than how they had learned to learn this new math, right?
That's right.
IBC for many of us is new math. If you've been trained as a CPA or as a traditional financial planner or any of those kinds of things, it makes it really challenging sometimes to think about numbers and money in a different way.
Well, the hurdle becomes a wall. Yeah, the hurdle becomes a wall.
Yeah, but it doesn't change that it's true, right?
Nope.
So, Mike, the next, I know we're both excited about this next section. For our listeners, the next section is the grocery store. And sometimes people fly through this one. I think this is probably one of the most maybe overlooked or misunderstood sections of the book. So we're looking forward in our next podcast to dig into this deeper. So thank you for joining us. Please check out our website at lifesuccessandlegacy.com. If you don't have a Nelson Nash book, great opportunity to get one there. We'll send you a nice new one. It won't look all beat up and dog-eared and everything like mine. Mike, show yours.
No.
Yeah, it's nasty.
Mine's got a big rip in the front page. I'm telling you, it's just.
That's good. All right, thanks for joining us, and catch us on our next podcast.